Greetings, my name's Fraser. Welcome to the first episode of Until the Last Gasp, Extreme Metal Podcast. My aim here is to cover the history and notable events in death metal, black metal, extreme ends of thrash metal, and any other of the millions crossover subgenres that have happened through those. First of all, if you want to get into contact with me, just look up Until the Last Gasp, Extreme Metal Podcast on Facebook, and just let me know with some feedback, suggestions, anything I'm doing right, wrong, or tell me to go fuck myself and my opinions, because that's what the internet's for these days. So yeah, let's kick it off. I'm going to go through my favourite band in the period of releases that is probably the most documented and debated at this point. Literally, I'm just another bloke weighing in with his shit before the hour strikes and the next person on the internet feels compelled to do the same. And with that long intro, you've probably guessed I'm talking about Morbid Angel, the David Vincent years. And yes, I'm going to include that fucking album. My God, spoiler alert, it's shit. And I suppose you've noticed at this point, I do have an accent. I am Australian, and if that does piss you off in any way, it's probably because you think the Earth is flat and Australia doesn't exist. So if that is the case, then I also don't exist, and you have nothing to worry about, mate. So good luck to you. All right, so we're going to start off with Altars of Madness. The lineup for this one was Dave Vincent, bass and vocals, Trey Azagoth on guitars, Richard Brunel on guitars, rest in peace, and Pete Sandoval on drums. It was engineered by Tom Morris and released on May 12th, 1989. 10 songs in total, running at a combined runtime of 38 minutes and 53 seconds. And the track listing here is Immortal Rights, Suffocation, Visions from the Dark Side, Maze of Torment, Lord of All Fever and Plagues, Chapel of Ghouls, Bleed for the Devil, Damnation, Blasphemy, and Evil Spells. Immortal Rights. So what you heard just there is the first riff into this song, and it's a belter. It's one of the most iconic riffs within their discography. I mean, as an opening track, it is phenomenal. Just devastatingly heavy. Iconic too. Played a lot of it in their live set. Still fan favourite to this day. That song, for 1989, as an opener, you would put this thing on and instantly your mind was blown. I've heard people that I know who were around back then. A few guys in Melbourne said the first time they heard it, they were at a live show. Somebody dropped this on record the day it was released at the DJ booth in between a set, and everybody just stopped, freaked out, ran to see what this was. Just them playing the record on the turntable. They ran to the desk to see what this was. It was unheard of, so insanely heavy. It changed the game completely. And the songwriting on that thing too is just so smooth it's a sin. It's really unreal, unheard of how good for a first release, first song to come in with an impact that good. I mean, I've had it cut before the riff there. It was meant to have like a reversed intro thing. It's kind of it seems like a reversed guitar intro. Might be just that trick of the studio where you take it, record it, flip it around, throw it at the start, but it just has this kind of off-kilter kind of feel. It starts straight into that riff you just heard at the start of this bit. And from that, it only just gets even more extreme. You have the kind of like a trem-picked verse riff with Dave Vincent up there bellowing out some evil, satanic shit for its day. I mean, now it's kind of standard fare, blasphemic, death metal, satanic stuff. But back then, that stuff would have been truly terrifying to anyone that wasn't at least listening to something like Slayer or Possessed at the time. It would have scared the shit out of people. Maze of Torment. Here you have another song with those kind of groovy, sinister opening riffs, and then, the counted in on the drums. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, all fucking hell breaks loose again. These great riffs, but you really can't understate the playing of Pete Sandoval on this track. It's so fucking fast, and it's just him beating the living shit out of his kit, like blast beat madness. For the majority of this thing, it's the stamina alone is incredible. Especially when you consider the studio that they were in at the time. It would have probably been all real hits. I think they went into the drum samples a bit later in their career, so definitely sounds like a full organic kit playing here. So those kind of takes are unbelievable for their day too. And the midsection kind of slows down a bit into these kind of tortured, dragging chords across the neck that leads into these solos that are just like Slayer on crack. It's the only way I can really describe it. Like Trey Azagoth, I mean, he is truly unique, but he can outslay a Slayer. It's just a feat in itself, really. Chapel of Ghouls. So you're hearing there that jackhammer intro, pounds in, then straight away, before you even get used to it being there, off into the verses full of satanic themes and gobbledygook from the 80s. It's all very evil in its day. And from there, kind of get this, I guess you would say it's like a Hangar 18-esque thing of an arrangement for a Morbid Angel song, if that's a fair comparison. And be taking the idea of sprinkling very sparse amounts of lyrics in between, changing riffs with just solo after solo after solo, just littered all over this thing. And if I was to go into some more things, I mean, I'm not going to stick around too long and dissect every song on here, but songs like Bleed for the Devil, that's Pete Sandoval trying to pummel his drum set into a fine paste from start to finish. It's really insane. Definitely check that one out. And like the entire back end of this album is loaded with some of the fastest shit they'll put together in this period, maybe if not ever, and finished off with Evil Spells, which isn't just them leaving their shit buried in the back of the album, which you kind of came to expect with a lot of things in the 80s. People would put their best foot forward, and by the time you got three-quarters of the way through the album, you start tripping over these kind of awkwardly written, boring tracks. It doesn't happen here. This is a start to finish, all killer, no filler. And if you need somewhere to start with Morbid Angel, start at the beginning. Like, this album is so ahead of its time, ahead of the curve into anything that was going on, even for a few years. For most other bands, they were still catching up to this record as Morbid Angel was progressing along. So this thing is a classic. You need to have this in your collection. It's not complete without it. And from there, we're going to go to the second album in the Dave Vincent era of Morbid Angel. And once again, we got the classic lineup of Trey, Dave, Richard, and Peter, and again engineered by Tom Morris. It was released on the 22nd of May 1991. It had 13 songs at a runtime of 39 minutes and 24 seconds, though there is a fair few instrumentals kind of padding out that runtime there. You got your track listing is the intro, which is your first instrumental, then Fall from Grace, Brainstorm, Rebel Lands, Doomsday Celebration, second instrumental there, Day of Suffering, Blessed Are the Sick leading the Rats, Thy Kingdom Come, Unholy Blasphemies, Abominations, Desolate Ways, another instrumental there, The Ancient One, and the final instrumental and last track of the album, In Remembrance. And the cover painting of this is by Jean Delville. And I'm going to totally butcher the name of the painting. It's called Les Trésors de Satan. Looks to be a river of damp, naked souls and ecstasy being drawn into the hands of a Michelangelo-looking figure depiction of Satan. Not really an arts major, so I don't exactly fucking know what I'm saying, but yeah, it's a cool painting regardless. And I've got to say too, this is probably over time, it's become my favourite Morbid Angel record. I find myself putting this one on whenever I'm thinking of listening to a Morbid record. Those pullback tempos and those filthy riffs, which became the trademark Morbid Angel sound, really took shape here. And some say they did them better later on other records, and you might have a point there. But end of the day, I just love this record, and it's personally my number one. Fall from Grace. So what you're going to hear, basically, with Fall from Grace is different Morbid Angel than what you had from the first record. They do tend to have a bit more of a doomy, sinister intro that feels kind of like it's swaying like a candle at an altar and all that kind of shit. Really dark, foreboding kind of feel to it. And it builds into this really chunky riff backed with Pete's blast beats that you just heard on the intro bit there. And it's really attacks hard when it kicks in. Dave's voice is so much deeper, you notice on this record too. During the recordings of this one and the previous record. I think it was this one that he said that he quit smoking for, so it allowed him to open up and to get that more bellowy kind of deeper vocals. Not necessarily the deepest he would get, but it was very noticeably different here, as well as his lyric writing. It was far more occult than the shock and awe kind of horror satanic themes that they used to use in the 80s period of Morbid Angel. And it really fits the music perfectly too in this one, just because they're more dark, foreboding sound with a more serious occult-based lyrics really lends itself to this sound that they've moved into. Day of Suffering. So I'd recommend that you listen to this song, Day of Suffering, just simply because this is where you hear Dave Vincent hit that low, that newfound, extremely low, deep, guttural death metal sound. Pretty iconic for him. He was a bit more raspy on the last record, so when you hear it's substantially lower when this record starts out than the previous one, and when you get to here, you notice even again how much further he's gone down. They push the tempos a bit more on this song too while he's getting that low, and he still manages to maintain that lower register in his vocals and still having all of the lyrics and the way that he performs it. You can still hear all the syllables in it, which is fucking impressive considering how low it is. And then you get to this point now where you've realised that this is the third song on this record that's clocked in under 3 minutes, with Rebel Lands and one of the other, Brainstorm, that's the one. They've not really stuck around, but they do feel like fully realised songs, which is different because most of their other songs would run from anywhere to like minimum 3.5 to 4 minutes on the last record. And this one, you're kind of knocking tracks off very quickly. But like I was saying, they are fully realised ideas. Just maybe it feels like there's potential some kind of influence from the grindcore scene, maybe the late 80s, early 90s grindcore scene, using intros between songs and, kind of keeping those tempos short, really potent ideas as far as riffs, drums, everything comes in. There's an immediacy to them. They don't stick around. They just fly by. You realise you've just met pretty much the midpoint of the record extremely fast, but it's still a very satisfying listen so far. Blessed are the sick, leading the rats. So with this song here, you get the birth of that iconic Morbid Angel sound within their discography. It's almost, after this, you kind of find that the formula of that is being used with the filthy lumbering riffs into the groove that's almost got that really kind of should disgust you kind of sound, but it's very fucking cool. Mostly mid to low tempos. So in this song, when you hit that final minute, and it's even slower and gloomier than everything that preceded it, it really, really maintains that potent menace and can leave your jaw on the floor with that change. It's quite effective, really. Then it's just brilliant songwriting once again here on all fronts, until that mood's kind of broken by this weird 90s flute outro that's made of like digital samples, something that kind of sounds more MIDI, and I think the riff itself was probably enough to seal the deal on this, but I guess for some reason they had a theme in mind to go with, and it doesn't take away from how good the song is, but just nowadays you can really hear that it's a MIDI sound being used there, not a real flute, so it's kind of a bit dated now, but the record itself, it's not going to be knocking on any doors of modern production anyway. It does stand up though. Unholy Blasphemy. So we're going to bring up here this one, Unholy Blasphemy, just because it's probably one of the faster and most aggressive records off this album, possibly even the most aggressive on this record, really. It's bolstered by another noticeably deeper vocal performance by Dave on this one here. like by comparison to the others, it's really a cavernous vocal. And you got to wonder if there was a gap in these sessions too, really, with the vocals, because between different tracks you will hear Dave will have more similar but step lower than the previous album, and then there'll be a song straight after it, and it'll be twice as low again. So it makes you wonder if there was a gap in the sessions there, because damn, it's huge, like huge jumps in, well, I'd say steps down in vocal performance there. And the solos on this are mental as anything else too. Like, they're crazy. Another complete Slayer, taking them to task kind of deal. Finally, I want to just bring up two Desolate Ways just quickly here, because it's a weird acoustic piece that kind of, it's an instrumental, but it's a beautiful kind of instrumental to sit on a death metal record. So I just got to bring up how weird that is. Kind of, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a very well-written acoustic instrumental. It's good or bad, really stands out, I guess you would say. And I love this album. It's a grower for sure. It's got some real earworm hooks on there, and ones that'll catch you with multiple listens. So you got to come back for it a few times to really have those ones kind of sit there in your brain and get their hooks in there. It's a bit cleaner too on the production there, especially on the drums. This is where they started using the replacements, so it's got a very clicky kick sound. It was pretty new tech in those days, so I think they kind of got a bit caught up in it there, but that's probably as far as saying a negative. That would probably be it there. It's sometimes like the redheaded stepchild of the first four albums, just on the production there. But with those two things, you just kind of get past them and give it a go, because it really will grow on you. It's a classic. From that, we're going to go into Covenant, the third record, which is a landmark album for the band, and also for the genre itself, being the first death metal record to be released on a major label, or I guess you'd say it's a subsidiary with Giant. That was an offshoot of Warner Brothers Records, so this album had a lot of potential reach at the time, being distributed through them, and the lineup is down one member this time, with Richard being basically kicked out for substance abuse problems he had at the time. So this time we only have a trio, which is David Vincent on bass and vocals, Trey Azagoth on guitars and keys, and Pete Sandoval on the kit again. Tom Morris engineered this one again, but he also had Fleming Rasmussen, who works some production stuff on this one too, who would be famous for working on Metallica classics like Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning. So with a bigger budget and the potential reach, plus also having very experienced engineers, this one was kind of set and poised to be a quite big landmark record. It was released on the 22nd of June 1993 with 10 tracks coming in at 41 minutes and 12 seconds. Your listing is here: Rapture, Pain Divine, World of Shit, The Promised Land, Vengeance is Mine, The Lion's Den, Blood on My Hands, Angel of Disease, Sworn to the Black, Nar Mataru, I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced, which is an instrumental, the only instrumental on this one, and God of Emptiness. And the album cover on this one was a photo that was taken by Martin Nesbitt, an Earache employee, but it really captures the kind of occult themes in this one here, because it's got what looks to be some kind of incantations written in blood. That's got like a inkwell filled with what probably is red ink, but it looks like blood, and a feather pen, some black magic grimoires, and a burning candle with a double-edged knife there. Pretty sure that's called an anathema. Somebody will tell me. Probably a good time to plug here, just to let me know if I'm right or wrong on Facebook here. Until the Last Gasp Extreme Metal Podcast. I'll have a link to the episode, so maybe just leave it underneath there and let me know if you like it, if I've done anything right, wrong, and the actual name of that fucking knife. That'd be great. Thanks very much. Rapture. So this song was the first Morbid Angel song that I'd ever heard. It's probably a good thing too, because it's got a lot more of a traditional arrangement, even though it's got those really heavy and fast riffs, and it's a bit of an assault and a very overwhelming for a young man trying to spread his wings, I guess you would say, as far as trying to find new music. At least when I picked it up on a whim, it completely floored me. That kind of controlled chaos straight away. You notice the jump in production on this thing too, if you've listened to the records previously. It's very full and organic, yet dark and aggressive. In all the right measures, too. That guitar tone is perfect. It's kind of got a chunky sludge with a very good crunch to it. And the drum sound has been perfected here. It's really tight, but full. Another thing you'll instantly notice at this point is Dave has now come fully into his own with that deep vocals there. It's straight out the gate, deep as deep can be, and it continues through that entire record this way. And his lyrics are so audible, it's really impossible to describe how impressive that is. And from then, you go also into the next song, Pain Divine. It's perfect follow-up for Rapture. It's basically a 1-2 punch, taking all these foundational parts that you would hear in Rapture, building up those elements, very much like more is more. More is more with this record. Very impressive. Sworn to the Black. So picking songs off this album to highlight the shining moments of it is really fucking hard, because the further you get into this record, it's really like they have the combination of their own elements to make a greatest hits in one record feel. There's a charm to the riff of Sworn to the Black, though, that kind of inches it ahead for me. I really like that shadowy, maelstromic whirling to its groove. I guess that's the most fucking nonsensical description, but I don't know, it kind of fits. It's hard to describe. It's very a push-pull, but very fast and aggressive riff, and it's hard to accurately describe. You just got to hear it. It's definitely a cut above quality, but there's a list of songs in between this, so there's 4 or 5 others before it that just, each one of them you could pretty much put on a pedestal, because it's quality shit that just can't be topped, really. And at this point, too, I also got to mention, because I've kind of gelled over it or ran over it a bit quickly here, Trey Azagoth soloing on this record is just... he's all over this thing. This is so truly unique. He's so truly unique of a player. Words don't do it justice, and it just feels like theory can't even contain this man. He has no conventions, and it's just like twisted logic listening to what he's writing. On one hand, you got this kind of devoid of melody, kind of to the ear almost, but it's extremely catchy at the same time. It's off its fucking head. It leaves you really in awe. God of Emptiness. So before I get onto this song, I just want to quickly bring up about World of Shit, the other song on this record, which kind of has the 2 lumbering behemoth songs on this record. World of Shit, The Promised Land. It starts off with a kind of a return to the Blessed Are the Sick sound of Morbid Angel that you would have heard off the previous record's title track. I'd go as far as to say it's probably a spiritual successor in a way too, just with the noticeable difference being, instead of where Blessed Are the Sick kind of stepped down the tempo, World of Shit, after having this very weighty, doomy intro, hits the accelerator and just fucking floors it. So with that, we're going to go into the most infamous single off this record, because it's been subject to a bit of ridicule from Beavis and Butthead. It's the God of Emptiness. It's an iconic song, and it's really undeniable how iconic this is, because every fan knows it, and you'd probably have people that were watching MTV not knowing who the band was that would know with God of Emptiness. That was an iconic song for MTV, the spots, Beavis and Butthead, and they would pretty much be able to pick Morbid Angel out of that. It's very iconic for them at that time. So when you start off the song, you got this filthy creaking doom-paced riff that kind of opens into Dave's lowest growl on the record. I would feel safe in saying that. And the lyrics on this one is kind of darkly antagonistic, kind of being this whole apostasy of people into this self-ordained godhood, having everybody, come to him and all that. And it's pretty lyrically perfect for the kind of atmosphere it goes for, especially when you're fitting in the kind of grandiose themes mixed with this kind of clean baritone stuff he has in the the later part of this song where he's doing the bow to me faithfully that they made fun of in the Beavis and Butthead segment I was talking about before. And with this song, it's kind of got all of those great elements, moves along for around 5 minutes and then fades out and just ends this masterpiece of a record in a very, very iconic and memorable way. So it's really hard to fathom how a record this important, this big, and this incredible, released from a band that was on the up and up and they just hit a major label almost status, and then you watch the band themselves and the scene that they're a part of start to just decline after this record. It was extremely interesting to look into going back through this just to watch. Like, there were still great records, but I think with the creation of black metal, the interest was dropping off for something that was a bit more sinister, as some of the bands themselves were going to a more socially conscious idea of songwriting and lyricism. But yeah, so we're going to go from this one into Domination. Now, what we really have here is what should have stayed the final record in the Dave Vincent era, as far as I'm concerned. That's some foreshadowing right there for you. The lineup on this one was the returning trio of Dave Vincent on bass and vocals, Trey Azagoth on guitars and keys, Pete Sandoval returning on drums, and the addition of Eric Rutan this time on guitar and keys, who's now widely known for his own band, Hate Eternal, and he recently replaced Pat O'Brien in Cannibal Corpse as the lead guitarist. And this one no longer has Tom Morris doing any of the production on it. They've now got it produced and engineered by Bill Kennedy and mastered by Alan Yoshida. It was released on May 9th, 1995, and it was their last on the Warner-owned Giant Records. It was a runtime of 44 minutes and 45 seconds, with a track listing here with Dominate, Where the Slime Live, Eyes to See, Ears to Hear, Melting, it's an instrumental track, Nothing But Fear, Dawn of At the Angry, This Means War, Caesar's Palace, Dreaming, which was another instrumental, Inquisition, Burn With Me, and Hate Work. Dominate. So, Morbid Angel, they just have a real talent for picking out great album opening tracks. They're digestible and they perfectly set that tone for the rest of the album. And Dominate, out of the 4 albums openers that they've had for all the other records, I'd say it's probably the most straightforward, but you come to find that with this record, it is the most easy to digest for a more casual listener. Not that it's a bad thing, it's trying to please the major label that they're on. And at the time, Morbid Angel elements were still there. They're just a lot more refined in the way that, the bleeding was for Cannibal Corpse. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with this track. It's, like I said, an extreme solid opener. I would just probably put it as the least memorable out of the 4 opening tracks from those first 4 records, but still quality. Where the Slime Live. So, Where the Slime Live. This is a song that, along with God of Emptiness, would be up there. It's possibly their number 1 most famous song. If you haven't heard God of Emptiness, this would probably be the other one you know them for. These 2 songs, hand in hand, are very similar, but yet distinctly different too, with a lot of the same elements used in different ways. Like everything I said about God of Emptiness, as far as its place in mainstream recognisability and all that, is the same pretty much, minus the Beavis and Butthead appearance, of course. But instead of that dark, sinister, occult atmosphere that you would have had with God of Emptiness, Where the Slime Lives instead refines the stomp-through groove and aggression on it, and that warbling echo effect that they had on the chorus of God of Emptiness for the vocal is now laid really thick on those verses. You may have heard a small snippet of that just as that song was fading out. But Dave's baritone, he's spoken word stuff is there too, that kind of spoken deep, whoa, pitchy chest stuff is there, but there's also that mid-paced filthy riffing, and the guitars is there too. And this time those elements are just stitched together in a more commercially viable manner. Worked. It really worked though. This is iconic and it's a classic song. It's really a perfect single. It is, much in the way that God of Emptiness was. It's equal parts for this as well. Like, it is the tone of that record in the most digestible manner possible, with all of the elements of Morbid Angel in place. Open discussion. So by the time you get halfway through this record, you find there's a few things that will reveal themselves to you. Like, one, the melodic passages throughout these songs, they're in most of the songs. It feels like they're an addition, possibly from Bruton joining the fold. Maybe not, but it plays nicely off Trey's style with being the more chaotic soloing thing, and then you get a lot larger, very melodic passages coming through, huge amounts of melody. It's very prevalent throughout this record. And two, the lyrical themes that they've gone for, they've gone the occult, Sumerian, Lovecraftian themes for a more casual us against them type of pseudo-satanic ramblings, which really does feel like it's trying to cast the widest net for getting a larger audience. Once again, the major label thing could have come into play there, so it's quite possibly the reasoning for that, but it's pretty forgettable lyrically. And the polish and the more formulated songwriting in this does kind of make the middle of this album run together, with a lot of elements standing out more than the actual songs themselves. I mean, until you get to Caesar's Palace, which is their ode to hedonism, which is one of the most commercial sounding songs as far as riffs and everything that they've really ever penned at this point. But yeah, I tend to find that nothing extremely memorable was in this mid part of the record. Though they were all really good songs, they're not throwaway in any way, but none of them stand out as much as maybe elements of those songs come forward more. The mid part of this album it carries you right through, right to the end, but you drift off a little bit just because it doesn't feel like there's anything there to change up and capture you as much as previous records would have. At least that's my opinion. Artwork is different from the rest of the album, as much as it is a symphonic death metal war march, I guess you would call it, in its sound. I do wish that they kind of explored this sound a bit more throughout the record, because it is really effective. Its elements here using those symphonic instruments and all that stuff on top of the riffs and the guttural vocals, maybe a bit more stripped back, like how they'd done in other pulling back in like their back end of Blessed Are the Sick, and then also ending it with the flute. You could have had more effective uses of things like this, more sparingly put through the record rather than making it into one long song, because it is a tad long. It really does kind of almost feel like it overstays its welcome a bit, but it does stand out too because those elements are so unique to this, and also it has Dave Vincent's lowest vocal performance on this record. The rest of the record, he kind of had more of a deep yell delivery, so when he does kick in with these extremely low vocals, you think, where the fuck have these been the rest of the record? Because they stand out so much. But like I've been saying, I think this is just more digestible and accessible to a less familiar audience for a Morbid Angel record. And it may sound at this point that I'm not talking about this record like it's any good and in a less favourable light, but it is a good stepping off point for people getting into the band and death metal as a whole, but measured against their own previous efforts and creative spontaneous energy that this band has been known for, it does feel a little bit more watered down here, and they've kind of pulled those elements together into a more refined tool of, aggression, but with the less exploration within the musical ideas that they've got. I mean, I can kind of see why this might have been their last musical outing. The lyrically is not as inspired either, and so this is possibly why we didn't see anything from them for the next decade and a half with David Vincent. It just kind of felt like maybe they'd wrung this one out of all its creativeness, and yeah, it was just musically sound, but a step behind their previous efforts. And for the rest of the decade and into the early 2000s, Morbid Angel went on to make more records. They just used... Steve Tucker was on the bass vocals and all that, and you still had, that creative element there musically with Trey Azagoth and Pete Sandoval, so it was still great shit, and I will get on to doing a Steve Tucker episode. I just see how I go with these, and I'll circle back around to Steve Tucker era Morbid Angel, because it kind of, after this next record I'm talking about, it really did kind of save the band, getting him back in the last time and the time before that. So we'll move on to the next record, much to my own dismay. I will play one sample at the start of this, and I'm not going to give any details into this. I'm going to try and just run through this as quick as I can. So for better or worse, here is Allude Divinium Insanus. This album is a fucking joke. I'm going to go completely over the details on this one. I'm just going to summarize this as quick as I can, because 10 years could feel like a long time to hold a grudge, but not for this fucking album, man. My disdain for this is almost as fresh as it was the day it came out. The return of Dave Vincent after 15 years, some fucking Nicky Six, Dave Vincent looking hybrid to the band, was dismal. It was fucking dismal. You can hear by that sample that you have in there. The expectations were high for this record when they said they were going to release some new material, because the performances at the time they were playing were top notch. They were in really good form, energetic, lively performances. So when this album came out and it was just dead on arrival, this album hit the store shelves, and the loyal fans like myself that went to pick this up, we were introduced right away to the biggest fucking fall from grace, like pun intended, fall from fucking grace and musical sin that has ever happened to death metal. Like, Morbid Angel went fucking techno. Like, how does that happen? And they boldly placed it on the front of the album. Allude Divinium Insanus should be fucking called It'll Die in the Anus, because it's an old as he's saying. It died in the fucking ass. Dead on arrival. Absolute shit. The first song starts with that thumping dance club beat, and its open lines hilariously give you a warning. It's like, say, this is your one warning, so fucking heed it and turn it off at that point, because it only sinks lower. And the song titles on this are so laughably crap and juvenile, like Too Extreme, I Am Morbid, Destructos versus the Earth, Radicult, and that's a cult spelt with a fucking K, man. I mean, fuck. The warning signs are written all over the back of this record, and the songs are as musically shit as their titles would indicate. There's a few passable ones on here, don't get me wrong, like it's Morbid Angel. You got to have some parts there that sound like Morbid Angel, like probably Blades for Baal and Nevermore. And they're really the only titles that don't read like a goth kid gamer's fucking gamer tag. Like, in this catalogue, they really don't make an impact at all, though. Like, those two songs really don't make an impact in the Morbid Angel catalogue. They're just by numbers. And everyone who was on this or has been close to this has been exiled for the band in recent years too. So, just all of these guys are gone, and it was just Trey left. And seeing the poison fruits that this reunited teaming of Dave and Trey bared, it's probably for the better. I mean, I feel bad for Tim Ewing and Destructor being on this thing, because they have impressive resumes themselves. Like, between those two guys, they were in Nile, Vital Remains, Zyklon, and Merkskog. Like, this did them no justice and their abilities whatsoever. Dave's work in Ultimus recently kind of saved his name a little bit, but damage is done at this point, and Trey did a new Morbid Angel record bringing back Steve Tucker. As I talked about before, it kind of saved the life of this band, because everyone was ready to just leave this thing burnt in a pile of ash like many of those incense boxes that people were destroying online after this came out, you know. What this album should be is like have its carcass hung off a bridge as a stern warning to others that try and release something this shit. It's a side project at best that should have been left in obscurity, but with the Morbid Angel name there, it nearly killed off one of the heavyweights of death metal. And that's really all I'm going to say about that, because this is the end of the Dave Vincent era of Morbid Angel. It's like a creative Icarus that was once soaring and ultimately fell back to earth and nosedived fucking hard. Like, it nearly killed it. But anyway, to put all that aside, still a great band. The records before in this period of Morbid Angel were some of the best in the genre, and this last one was just a nosedive and, like I said, giant fall from grace. But anyway, thanks for joining me in this dive into Morbid Angel, the Vincent era. In future episodes, I kind of want to review recent releases, and I'm hoping to make it some kind of regular segment to have inputs on albums from listeners too. If you want to go to the Facebook page there, have some reviews on that and active discussions even online in the comments of that, with dedicated threads on like the Facebook page underneath maybe its own separate posting, or on any other platform I decide to engage on. I've not really got much in the way of social media, so I could look into some more. Let me know if there's any ones that you think that I should be jumping onto. I've picked up some recent titles, so I'm thinking I might do one just as a trial run next time I do an episode. I'm thinking of going with... what do I got here? I'll probably go with the sinister monstrosity spawned by the unfathomable ignorance of humankind. Fuck, that's a mouthful. By the band Oxygen Destroyer, that was just recently released by Redefining Darkness Records, and it's available to purchase on their Bandcamp and stream there too. So give it a listen if it's up your alley. It's got a very Vader-esque and death thrash kind of a feel to it. So yeah, give that a listen if you like it. Give it a paid download or even purchase a physical copy. You got to support that scene. And next episode, I'm going to look into the albums of Swedish black and death metal legends Dissection, the legacy they've left in extreme metal, as well as the controversies, plus their return and what would become the disturbing and abrupt end of the band at the hands of the creator and frontman John Nodvart. But until then, you can get in touch with me on Facebook at Until the Last Gasp Extreme Metal Podcast, and get any updates as well as checking back if you're currently listening or subscribing on anything like YouTube, Spotify, or Bandcamp pages. I'm going to try and upload to as many of those as I can to get some engagement, so please let me know which ones you're using as well and you get in contact. And for any updates, just remember to hit the bell button on YouTube so that you'll be instantly notified of any new episodes. But until then, stay well, play it loud, and support metal until the last gasp. See ya.